everyone, back tuning into today's second video. So we're in on the 5-day forecast. You find the videos out here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page and it's underneath the link ads. There's also the written version. You get to that via button at the top of the page. And it's going to be a very traditional spell of early spring weather in the next 5 days, really. Some very mild temperatures coming up over the next few days. And there will be some rain around at times as well. But nothing overly dramatic showing up, certainly, for the next 5 days at least. So this video is going to extend out beyond the 5-day forecast period, and we're going to go out to day 10. Let's have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days as well. And I'll show you what's going on in America, because again, some quite interesting weather as well. So I better get on with all of that for you right now. Just say about the ads, so there's video ads on all the pages. Have a watch of those. You will help me pay website. Thanks so much for doing that. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next 2 weeks. So red line here is the 30-year temperature average in terms of the upper air temperatures. And we're in quite a warm envelope there right now. I'm going to keep that through the remainder of the week. Now, we're going to a weekend, and we do find the temperatures dropping off a little bit, but then next week they are recovering. Now, you remember over the last few days with these charts, we've been seeing a split, really, between the GFS ensembles, around 50-50 split between the ensemble members that are keeping things mild and the ensemble members that are turning things cold. We have moved very significantly now with the GFS ensembles in the direction of mild weather for next week. We are losing quite rapidly now those cold winds. There are still a few of them, not as cold as they were yesterday. There are still a few that turn things colder next week, but the broad thrust of the model is definitely to be turning things above average again through next week and keeping it there. And there are several members that are actually really quite warm for the time of year. So I think that sort of split we had yesterday between a chance of cold, chance of mild, we have moved very significantly, certainly with the GFS ensembles, in the direction of mild weather. Now, in terms of precipitation, we've got some rainfall coming up across England and Wales today, especially down in the south. We're going to dry day tomorrow. More rain coming up at the end of the week and into the weekend. So fairly unsettled, if not, it's not a washout, but fairly unsettled over the next few days. Early next week, it turns a bit dry. I mean, later on, maybe some rainfall coming back. There's no sign of a desperately wet spell setting up. Just traditional sort of spring weather, which is unsettled at times, but also with dry spells and temperatures quite mild. So these are the temperature anomalies for the next week. This takes us from the 8th to the 16th of March. It'll be coming out milder than average there. It's been cold over Scandinavia, but things are starting to turn a bit milder there too. So most parts of Europe generally coming out milder than average in the week ahead. The precipitation anomaly looks like this. It's drier than average in the southwest of Europe. The wettest conditions appear to be down in the southeast of Europe. For the UK, probably a little bit on the drier than average side, if anything. Now, where's winter, or where's the late blast of winter? That's gone into America. So these are the temperature anomalies for the United States for the next week. Fairly warm temperature anomalies out in the west, but get past the Midwest and you find really cold temperature anomalies there in much of the north and the east and central part of the United States. So populated areas facing really quite a cold week coming up with temperatures significantly below average. Now, remember, California was very wet a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago. It's turning drier there now, so things are reverting back to a more normal scenario for the west of the state in terms of precipitation. Anomaly from the 8th to the 16th of March is coming out drier than average. Eastern areas, though, not particularly wet, but there is some precipitation around with cold temperatures, such as we're seeing there. Most of that will be snow. Here's the exotic pressure chart for America for today. Most parts of America are still under this relatively warm ridge, but you'll notice this trough up over Canada and this cold northerly beginning to thrust down into the far northeast of the states. This gets more severe over the next few days. So by Saturday, we've got a ridge there from Canada extending down into the Midwest, and it's on the eastern side of that ridge, but we're putting down this very, very cold air, severely cold air, coming down from the north into the east states. There's the upper air temperatures. Look how cold it is across much of the north and the east of the United States. So we're going to be hearing about cold weather in the eastern part of America over the next few days, I would assume. And then not desperately so to start off with, but as we run through into next week, we actually find signs of a bit of a northeaster. Look at that, for Wednesday next week, a week today. There's a deep area of low pressure just off the eastern seaboard. A gale force northerly, northeasterly wind. It's a classic northeaster, and that will be giving severe blizzards at the eastern side of the United States. Says the upper air temperatures showing that it's warm off the coast, mild upper air temperatures off the coast, but on the northern and eastern side of this low pressure, it's really cold, and it's colder certainly for snow. So they're going to get it, I think, in America over the next few days. This might be the response to that sudden stratospheric warming that we've been waiting for. I've always said that although we get a sudden stratospheric warming, and we might get cold air pushed out of the pole into the mid-latitudes, it just depends where that cold air goes. It looks like this time that cold air is possibly being pushed down into America as opposed to Europe. They're really in for it over the next week or so, I think. So, coming back to our weather, this is the situation on Sunday, bringing this trough of low pressure across the country. I think there will be some rain around over the weekend. It's a little bit cooler on Sunday as well, after a very mild into the week and very mild on Saturday. Into next week, there's a ridge building from the southwest, so mostly dry to start next week. We keep it dry really through into the middle part of the week. Very gradually that ridge is being broken down by low pressure coming back in off the Atlantic. But up to Wednesday, I think quite a lot of dry weather next week. Beyond that, up towards day 10, and we're in the second half of the month now, it's turning more unsettled again, with low pressure moving in from off the Atlantic. So after trying to start to next week, the second half of next week possibly turns a bit more unsettled once more. ECWS is very similar again for the weekend. It looks fairly unsettled. There'll be some rain around at times, but not a washout of a weekend by any means. Into the early part of next week, again, we have this ridge building from the south that brings dry weather, particularly to England and Wales. Then into the second half of next week, that ridge is sort of moving to the west-southwest, allowing low pressure to come back in off the Atlantic, and that turns things generally then more unsettled up to day 10, which is Saturday, 18th of March. It's looking more unsettled, although the high pressure still isn't all that far away to the southwest of the UK and Ireland. So I think there will be some rain coming through at times, second half of next week, but nothing overly dramatic, certainly nothing like they're facing in America next week. Finally, just have a look at Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. These are 500 millibar heights broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period taking us from the 6th through to the 15th of March. We find that I have got above average heights to the north. So I've got some blocking to the north, but generally it's low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. So it's an unsettled and Atlantic-driven 10 days ahead. The second 10-day period going from the 16th to the 25th of March. That one also looking quite unsettled, really. Low pressure is coming off the Atlantic. It might be overdoing this low pressure idea a little bit, I think. I don't think it's going to be as unsettled as this is suggesting, but it is the idea that we're bringing the weather in off the Atlantic, so unsettled at times and also mild temperatures, of course. The next 10-day period for the end of March, which takes from the 26th of March through to the 4th of April, shows a change. A ridge is building over and to the east of the country. That'll be turning the winds into the east, and of course, at the start of April, easterly winds could be chilly, but I wouldn't suspect they'll be overly cold, really, and probably just dragging in a lot of cloud. But if the sun comes out in April with east winds, it can be surprisingly mild, especially so in the west. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, which is the 5th through to the 14th of March, and it looks like it's turning more unsettled again. Low pressures in the Atlantic. We're breaking that ridge down, and we bring the flow back in from the west or the southwest once again. That's probably quite a mild and increasingly changeable situation going up to the middle part of April. So there's no sign of anything particularly dramatic occurring at the moment in terms of what weather is doing. It looks like the cold late punch of winter is going to be over Canada and America for the foreseeable future. For us in the UK and more widely in Europe, I think just looking at a traditional mix of spring weather at the moment. Now, we saw last year that we got to the end of April and we were still getting northerly winds, we were still getting snow and significant night frost, so we cannot rule out the chance of a throwback to winter. Most springs normally do have a throwback to winter at some point. It's unusual to get right from the beginning of spring to the end and not have any cold weather, but it does happen. That does happen at times. So we're just going to wait and see what happens, but certainly through the rest of March, there's no sign at the moment of anything particularly bad coming up in terms of cold weather. Of course, I'll keep you posted should the situation change. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.